Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rocksure Ramblings, where I discuss topics around digital marketing, marketing technology, and marketing operations for the financial services industry. My name is Fernando Pena, and I'm the founder of Rocksure, where I can help you master the digital channel. Today's topic is in response to what I hear from a lot of leaders in terms of their challenges and what they're looking to do going forward. And really, a lot of that conversation focuses around technology. And one of the first things that I come back with them or to them with is that you don't need technology, you need solutions. Now, that might sound a little unusual coming from someone who's such an advocate for digital marketing, but it's true. You really should not make decisions just based on the need for a technology, but more so an overall solution to your problems or your challenges. So, what I'll be going over today is that technology really just is a tool, how to align your strategy and your goals. Informed selection of those tools, technology should complement the process and also deploying those solutions as a whole. So, let's get started. So again, as I mentioned before, technology really is just a tool. And the reality of it is that no matter what technology you bring in and whatever these providers may say, these platforms do not generate revenue or growth. They are tools that, if properly utilized, they actually can help with achieving both of these goals. But they don't do this all on their own, and they're not the magic sort of solution that will automatically bring your organization to exceed your objectives. Another issue too is that inadequate use of technology might actually hinder your organization more than help. And I often see this where a platform is brought in, and now all resources are dedicated to trying to understand and work through that platform. And ultimately, they lose sight of why they're really trying to achieve these potential metrics that they've put in front of them. And it's not so much that the platform itself is flawed, but it's just that too much emphasis is placed on that tech and not necessarily meeting those organizational objectives. And that leads to the next point here, which is that resources that are traditionally budgeted for marketing or operational use are then devoted to these technologies, and ultimately that does then create a slowdown in terms of being able to achieve the objectives that you have stated. So again, technology is not a bad thing here. That's not what I'm saying, because ultimately it is something that is beneficial when used properly. But it's just that by saying I need a CRM, the question that you should really be asking is, why do you need a CRM? What is it that you notice that there's a deficiency in, and where the CRM might be able to address that deficiency? So, the most important thing when you're considering technology is to make sure to align your strategy and goals. And this has to come all the way from the top. So, as an organizational leader, what are the objectives of that company? Oftentimes, in financial services, it's either growth of some sort, or maybe cross selling and increasing and deepening a relationship, or it could be revenue based. But it all has to be agreed upon, because ultimately that's what you will use to base your decisions on whether that technology is needed or not. And what does your organization have to do to meet those objectives? So, is it something that can be created a more efficient process by using technology? If so, then you should absolutely look for it. But in some cases, maybe it's something where there's an internal process that is broken and just needs to be improved upon in order to be able to meet your needs. What resources are needed to meet those goals? This is important because, again, dedicating too many resources to a particular project could be detrimental to the organization as a whole. And what functionality do you need to achieve those goals? And I'll get into this a little bit more in the presentation. But what's important is not so much a platform type or a platform category, but what do you need this technology to do? And that's ultimately where you then make the decision as to what platform you might need going forward. So, informed selection of tools. Now, what's happened lately, or not lately, but really in recent years, the technology categories have pretty much blurred. So, what used to be like, let's say, a CRM or a sales automation tool has now morphed into a complete marketing solution. And that's great because you're getting a lot more bang for your buck, but also at the same time, there might be some functionality that may not necessarily align with what you need. And so, therefore, it's still a good idea to look at individual functionalities and not necessarily a platform type. So it's possible that a CRM tool might be able to do everything for you, but you may then find that the email capabilities of that tool are insufficient for your needs. Now you have to also understand how this tool can help you reach your organizational objective. So assess that particular function, and not necessarily that it's a good system, but it's a good system in your particular use case. When you're assessing these tools, make sure to use your actual metrics and not theoretical, because that will help you in making sure that this is actually going to move the needle when it comes to your needs, and not just this magical use case where everything falls into place. And of course, it's not really reflecting reality. The other important part is to involve all relevant stakeholders and parties on the decision. Now, it's not to say that you need this huge committee to make these decisions, but make sure to involve your IT team, make sure to involve sales, make sure to involve customer service and support, as ultimately they're all going to be impacted by this technology decision. So you want their feedback, and you want to be able to understand and really be able to draw out of them the needs that they have, and make sure that they're met by whatever it is that you're considering. Now, technology really should complement a process. Now, if there's processes that are broken, then obviously they need to be fixed. But really, what you should do is to build your processes independent of technology. So, if you have a way of fulfilling a certain campaign or doing something that is done within your organization today, make sure to build that process where technology plugs into it within the specific scenarios where it's needed. Now, you'll want to make sure to optimize these processes, of course, so that you have more productivity and benefit to your organization. So, again, if it's a broken process, by all means, fix it. But make sure that you are working the technology into your process and not the other way around, because then that means you become dependent upon a particular tool or a particular sort of platform. And in the event that that platform goes out of business, changes functionality, or for some reason you outgrow it, then you have difficulty in trying to rein in your process and make sure that it works for your needs. So adopt the technology into the process and not the other way around. The other thing too is that continually track your key performance indicators and metrics to determine if the technology is properly performing. That way you can, in time, especially during contract renewals, use that as a negotiation tactic with your vendors, saying that, hey, we are tracking everything very closely, and ultimately we're not meeting the sort of expectations of this platform, and we may have to reconsider going in a different direction. And finally, is deployment of the solutions. So when you're doing this, a lot of times, many stakeholders or project leaders, when they're deploying technology, will basically go into the project discussing how this technology is beneficial. But really, what you want to do is to package solutions, because what this does now is that it sort of breaks down the barriers. Where instead of this being a black box, it's something that is comprehensive and it's able to achieve this metric or this goal or this objective that you've stated. So package your strategy, your tactics, your processes, and your technology as a solution. And that is ultimately where you'll see successes, so that you can make sure that this entire movement is being utilized and properly adopted by the organization, because it's widely accepted that this is not just a software. This is something that's actually helping the organization as a whole, because we've looked at the entire big picture. So tie all the outcomes of the solution directly to the organizational objectives. So this is important as well, because if you have a tool that helps to bring in extra phone calls, but yet phone calls aren't necessarily the metric that you're trying to increase, it's deepening a relationship. Then it's time to change the metrics that you're tracking to the deepening of the relationships. Granted, the tool isn't necessarily doing that itself, but it's helping to, as part of that process, to meet that end objective. And the last thing here is really avoid being penny wise, pound foolish. And this is easier said than done oftentimes, because budgets are highly scrutinized. But keep in mind that there's a lot of disruption when you try to implement a new solution, especially a new technology. And you don't want to be doing that again in a short period of time. You're hoping that when you implement something, it will be the solution that can be leveraged for the foreseeable future. So a little bit more of an investment up front and studying exactly what is needed, and how it's going to be utilized is it pays dividends in the end, and that would be much better than rushing and implementing something to try to meet some salesperson's quarterly quota and get the better deal on it. So I would forego the deal instead and make sure that you're getting the right solution and that it's properly implemented for your sake. So that is it for today's discussion. Obviously, this is something that we can spend months discussing. But if you do have any questions on this topic or any others related to digital within financial services, give me a call or reach out to me via email. All my contact information is on this page. And until the next topic, I will see you again in the next video. Thank you so much for your time. Bye bye.